Hello. Last time I was streaming, I encountered some bugs in the games I was streaming. One of those bugs was in the NMK Tecmo game Riot, and another was in Taito's Raimais, or however you pronounce that one. Since that stream, which was yesterday, I've taken a look at some of those issues, and Aaron has too, because the sound bug in Raimais did turn out to be related to the new sound system. But I'm going to start by talking about the bug we found in NMK's Riot. Now, last year, I was looking at a bug fix for this game, the one that's on screen now, which is Final Star Force. Final Star Force, during the Attract intro, would always scroll for far too long. It like did a 10-second scroll instead of a quick 2-second scroll, and so it wasn't clear why that was happening. We pulled apart the code, we looked in detail and tried to figure out what was wrong, and found there was a timing loop in it which depended on the interrupt triggering the vertical blanking interrupt triggering multiple times per frame. Now that's really uncommon, because for most games it's expected to run once. It usually copies things like this across, and by the time it's finished the next frame's running, everything's running for the next frame, and it's just a little bit of code that updates the screen and things like that, reads inputs, and then advances the frame counter. Now the timing loop during this game's Attract mode was set so that it was counting a number of frames and kept scrolling until that number had expired. But the way it worked meant that it needed, I think about 4 interrupts per frame and not 1. And the interrupt code ring at the time was very, very short. A tiny bit of code, not a long bit, because it was hardly doing anything during that part. So we worked out that the interrupt line must be held high for the entire V-blank period, and the interrupt triggered multiple times in a row, so that the counter advances enough times to keep the scrolling from running on for too long. And so that was implemented last year. This was fixed, so it scrolls now. It stops on the proper title screen with the planet there. You can see it in action while I'm talking. And I tested the other games briefly in the driver, Riot and the other one. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. But they seem to work. I played a bit of Riot and played a bit of the other one and didn't encounter any issues. Unfortunately, I clearly stopped playing Riot at just the point before it developed issues. And I found those issues on the stream last night. Riot does not like multiple interrupts per frame. Now I'm going to give a quick credit on Final Star Force. It's not the most impressive of games, but it's a shooter. The original Star Force is a much more interesting game if you ask me. This one is okay, a bit ugly, and yet it'll do that to you if you forget. It's your average shooter. I don't really know why it's called Star Force. It doesn't seem to have much in common with the original Star Force, which is sort of one of those classic arcade games, really, and probably worth playing on a stream sometime too. But this is Star Force. I was glad to have it fixed last year. I just didn't realise the fix was causing problems for Riot too, until I found that out on stream last night. But yeah, this is just your average shooter, so you know what it's like. There's nothing memorable about it. It's my main problem with this one. It's, I don't know. It just sort of sits there and exists. Maybe it has its fans. It's not awful. It's just average. Weapons are ordinary. You've got this little thing that's chasing everything. It's not got flaws. Things die easily enough. It's not got huge flaws like that where everything takes 100 hits. But I'm just going to play a credit of this anyway, and then we'll go to Riot again, and I'll show the bug fix there. Because Riot is definitely worth playing. And I did not do it justice by demonstrating it in a broken state last night. Now, I think there are still a few things that need figuring out with this hardware, this Tecmo 16 hardware, because the games are on ROM boards for a motherboard, and the ROM boards just contain the ROMs as far as I know, and yet we've got 2 different memory maps with different time map sizes, so I think there was still some configuration registers missing. This does have a bit of sprite wobble, as you can see. Apparently that does happen on the PCB. It's just not the best coded game in the world. Maybe that's why it needed the 4 interrupts per frame anyway. But maybe it was an oversight that they just sort of worked around when you know, they realised it wasn't doing what they wanted. But anyway, so this was Final Star Force. I mean, give it a try if you've not played it before, but don't expect too much of it. It doesn't stand out to me. Yeah, here we go, you see. Oh, there you go. Up the high score table. And we should get the scroll loop after that, which again works nicely since last year when that was fixed. So let's quit out of that one, change back to my horizontal view, and fire up the game we were playing last night, which was Riot. I'm going to run the same clone I ran last night. I hope I've copied the fixed version of MAME to this folder, because if I haven't, that's going to be embarrassing. But here we go. If this fails as well, it's because I'm using the wrong MAME version. But I think I copied it. Now I'm having doubts. We'll see. Right. I'm also going to copy... Oh yeah, there might be some offset issues as well, because that gets a little bit cut off. That was top and that was bottom. So it wasn't actually a blending effect that was the problem later on in this first level of this. It was that the machine state was becoming corrupt by the multiple interrupts. But yeah, let's coin it up. It's the Woong Bi license version as well. I say license, I'm still not 100% convinced. But anyway. Nicely animated intro. Yeah, okay. This really lacks this auto file option. I don't understand why they didn't go with an actual auto file option. It makes it very awkward to play. Look, there's a dead Robocop there if you've not seen the dead Robocop. Speared. Licensed, I'm sure. Yeah, when you've got the fire buttons in the right place with the, you know, the up firing on the top and the down firing on the bottom, it's much easier to play. Right behind these, kill you because you can shoot me still. Oh. They're in Mario colours, but I don't think I'm being shot by Mario. Yeah, again, this looks like a slight layer offset issue there too that might need looking at. I guess the layer offsets have been tweaked, but I'm not sure they're quite right. And again, it might be something that differs per game, because the hardware probably was a lot more capable than anything that actually came out on it. There are only 3 games using this platform. It looked like something that Tecmo had made to be a more generic version of like the Ninja Gaiden type hardware. But then ultimately didn't use much, I guess because 2D was kind of dying out. I mean, it could be the single screen glitch, the single pixel glitches at the edge just happen on hardware, because a lot of the time that would have ended up off screen because of overscan areas and the like. I'm getting confused with my controls now. Oh dear. Well, sometimes you don't do very well, do you? Also helps if you shoot the power-ups. So this is where it went wrong before, and if I'm running the correct MAME version now, this shouldn't corrupt the colours. So there we go. It's actually got the correct clouds now. You know, this effect broke in the previous build and just rendered these clouds in broken colours. But now it's how I think it's meant to look. It's sort of a dream sequence type thing, isn't it? So yeah, they are walking in the air, but I think that's intentional. That's just what this bit's meant to look like. But the colours are correct now. We've not got, you know, broken clouds and broken background. It seems correct to me. At least unless somebody finds original footage to show there's an effect missing here. Yeah, the novelty of this game is the two-directional shooting. So it's like a Cabal type thing, but with scrolling and two-directional shooting. Yeah, that's that level done. And previously it locked up at the start of this level as well. And I think that should be fixed too. So yeah. So finding the bug on stream has actually helped because it's led to understanding that there was more needed for the initial fix for Final Star Force. You know, it's given an idea of the register that is used to clear the interrupts more so than anything. I was studying the code to fix the bug, the game code, and I noticed every game apart from Final Star Force made 2 writes at the start and end of the interrupt function, and Final Star Force was only writing to one of those registers. So in the end I've theorised that that register clears the V-blank interrupt status until the next frame, whereas, you know, writes that and doesn't expect multiple interrupts. Final Star Force expects the multiple interrupts and isn't writing that, so it's just allowing the, you know, the hardware to continue generating interrupt requests from the main CPU until the V-blank period is over. That's a logical sort of solution, and it's unusual, but it's not the first time something like that's been seen. So it's to me that's probably the correct solution for this problem. As you can see, the game now works. And we get past the place where it locked up before. Once I'm out of it, once there's credits, commented disassembly. I tend to not keep it around. I mean, I've got loads lying about of just little bits and error logs where I've commented a few lines in to work out things. None of it's neat, presentable disassembly. It's just, you know, for whatever I'm working on at any given time. And if I want to look at something again, I'll usually reverse engineer it again from scratch, and, you know, most of the time I'll do a better job than the previous time I did it. For a lot of the plug and plays I've been having to study disassemblies and stuff because the hardware tends to be really flexible and difficult to understand. If you look at something like the Zavix hardware, it's incredibly complex, and some of these Sun Plus systems as well, it's not quite clear what you're going to do, so you do end up with lots of lines of commentary. And hey Mass Ninja, well, as well. Yeah, so this game works now. I fixed the bug in this one, and Final Star Force still works. And those are the 2 issues. But you know, those were one of the issues I came across on the stream last night. So for the next version of MAME, these will both be in working state, I think, assuming the pull request is accepted. But I think it's correct. Now, the other game that I found was broken was the Taito one, Raimais, or however you want to pronounce it. This one did turn out to be a bug in Aaron's new sound code, and the issue was, I think, that if the ADPCM sounds were very low, it was blanking out the volume for all the sounds, all the some of the other channels, or something like that. Aaron explained it in the pull request. But yeah, it's actually quite a serious bug. But for some reason, this is the only game where it's actually been that shown up on. So maybe there are others that are broken, but we've not found them yet. However, getting it fixed before the next release obviously is going to result in a smoother transition to this new sound code, because people aren't going to be downloading that release and finding these bugs, because we found them during testing during the cycle, and Aaron has fixed it. So now if I credit this up now, the music that was missing before is present. So, you know, the game actually feels like a Taito game with a proper Taito quality soundtrack. And that is always good. Because Taito games without sound do just seem wrong. So, I mean, their soundtracks are sort of legendary, aren't they? Yeah. And yeah, this, as I said, the maze you get depends on which direction you go from each stage. I think there's other strategies in the order you pick things up, and I'm not an expert player of this. I've seen people clear stages by picking up certain dots in certain patterns, and so there's clearly more to it. But for my play, I'm just going to play it like a sort of head-on type game. And that is to say, I'm going to play it really badly, because I'm really bad at head-on games. No, it's a decent collect the dots game. It looks good, it sounds good. It's a shame Sega didn't do such a good job with Opa Fantasy Zone Maze 1 and just use the Master System hardware, because I think that could have made a really good arcade game with a proper piece of Sega hardware, rather than, you know, just going for their souped up Master System hardware. But that wasn't my choice. That was Sega wanting a budget platform as much as anything. That was silly. Yes, I will continue. But obviously this game is a lot nicer with music, which is now emulated again. I mean, it's not been broken in the public release, because I stream from the cutting edge builds, you know, the latest GitHub, to test them as much as anything, which is obviously, I think the benefits of doing that has been proven by finding these bugs. So, you know, it was never broken in the public release, but it's not going to end up broken in the public release, because the bug has been found and the bug has been fixed, and anything else that was possibly going to happen because of that bug has also been fixed. Again, this puts the sound code in a far better place than it was prior, because now it's properly licensed and sounds better for 99% of cases where we've you know, got references. There were bugs in things like Robocop before with the old sound code that have just been fixed by new sound code. So overall, it's going to be a big improvement. And ironing out any lurking bugs in the code, it's obviously a good idea. No, this is a tricky layout. Oh, just too slow. I missed that one, so would not have mattered. Yeah, this is only going to be a short stream. I'm probably looking at about an hour at most, but I did want to just talk about these bug fixes. Some of the other bugs that we saw on stream obviously aren't going to be fixed, but they're just long-standing emulation imperfections rather than recent bugs, or even ones that have ever been in a better state. I mean, things like, say, the CPC emulation and burning rubber. The raster splits have always been a bit off on that, and things like that. Versus Net Soccer. That's, you know, part of long-term Konami rewrites that one day will look a lot better, but who knows when. But so they're not recent bugs or anything, they're just how they've always been in MAME. It's these recent regressions and what we can learn from them that I wanted to focus on with this stream. And since these were two quite significant issues, I thought it worth covering. Anyway, I'm not going to play too much more of this. I think after this credit, I'm going to talk about something else. Because it wasn't actually... These weren't the only 2 bug fixes that I've made. Well, sorry, I didn't make this bug fix. That had been made. I haven't made this bug fix. Sorry. I made the Riot one, and the other one I'm going to talk about next. Sorry, that's... Did I just continue when I said I wasn't going to continue? Ooh, colourful maze. But yeah, I think this game has quite a few fans. I've seen talked about a fair bit, so it's not one that would have been good to ship broken, I feel. There we go. So this one was Aaron's bug fix for his new sound core, which I'm glad I found, because otherwise it might have slipped into a release with the bug. And again, this is why one of the reasons I'm doing these streams is to just test things and see where we are with things and uncover anything like that. Yeah, you did. I had a feeling it was, because it sounded really strange without music. The first thing that came to mind is, surely there's meant to be some music here. And yes, I do thank you. I appreciate that you went and did check that on stream. So, I knew not to play it for too long in that state, because it wasn't the best way to demonstrate it. But there you got a little demonstration of it right there. Now, the other bug I fixed was in 1943. I'm just going to fire up any 1943 set this time. I'm going to fire up Kai this time. But previously, you could fire it up multiple times, and sometimes there'd be a glitch in the bottom left corner. And now it's always fine, you see. Fire up the regular set. Fire up the one I was playing. What's it called? Fire up the one I was playing yesterday. It doesn't happen anymore. I mean, this was a really silly bug, actually. As I mentioned, the memory system update that Olivia did a while back, a couple of months back, changed it so that any out-of-bounds reads return garbage rather than either blank data or anything else really. So previously, if you were relying on an out-of-bounds read from a memory region, you'd usually get blank data just because of how the memory is allocated, and that changed. And therefore anything reading past the end of memory was just going to give random results, which is what was happening here. The sprite raw code was had a less than equals rather than a less than condition on the end check, so it was actually reading a single entry past the end of sprite RAM, which was resulting in a random sprite being displayed in the bottom left corner. Now, from the looks of it, that bug has actually been in MAME for many, many, many years, maybe forever. I don't know. I didn't look back too far, but every version I looked back in had the same bug. It just didn't manifest itself until the way the memory was allocated and organised and everything changed with Olivia's update. So this is what happens sometimes in development. You make a change and it will uncover a bug that's been there for a long time, and then you have to fix that bug, and they're not always expected ones. The speed up thing I was talking about on the previous stream was another case of that, really, where the changes to expose what was likely had always been a problem, just wasn't showing itself. But yeah, I'm gonna coin this one. I mean, I played this one anyway, and I managed to get it to boot without the glitch, so I'm only going to play that A credit of this. But yeah, this one won't show a random sprite in the bottom corner. Not every case of showing random sprites in the bottom corner is the same issue. There's an annoying problem with some Seta and Seta hardware games. We also use my Taito, where some of them will have bad sprite entries, but that's intentional. I think in those cases it's a case of a sprite limit not being emulated, but the sprite limits depend on other factors, like I think how many sprite tile mats are enabled. So if you try and limit the number of sprites in one game, you end up missing sprites in another. Some of them require Sprite 0 entry to be drawn, some don't. Kabuki said I think it's the worst one for that, while everything else seems to want you to ignore Sprite 0. That uses Sprite 0 for one of the score elements from memory. JD Squawkers is one that displays garbage in a corner because it doesn't want you to draw the whole sprite list, but then other games require you to draw that whole sprite list. And they're the same chips, so clearly something is influencing the number of sprites that can just be displayed. And it's not just a case of initializing the memory to one value or another. Some of them are intentionally filling memory with another value after startup. So those ones need investigation and probably tests on hardware to work out where the sprite limits come from. But in this case, it was just a case of drawing past the end of a memory buffer, which has now been fixed. So yeah, that's that one. Right. That brings us to about half an hour mark, and I've covered the bug fixes. So I guess this is where I just put some random game on with something to talk about. Okay, I saw BBH playing this one last night, and there's something interesting about it. This is, if I can remember the set name, there we go, Super Burger Time. One of Taito's maybe more forgettable sort of single screen platformers. I mean, the original Burger Time is a classic. I don't like the original Burger Time. I think it plays really badly. But then they came up with this sequel, which kind of feels like it must have been given to the sort of the junior programmer team or something like that. It's really, really rough around the edges and badly programmed. And you can turn it down a little bit. It's a bit loud in my ears, that one. Yeah, it's ugly, and it's full of bugs, and it's full of slowdown and sprite flicker and sprite drawing at the edges, but the PCB does exactly the same, which is a shame because the actual game design is really good. I mean, it's Burger Time, but without a lot of the annoyances that made Burger Time so frustrating. I mean, you say you've got timers on your weapons, and you pick up weapons at the side, and it's just faster, smoother, and you can jump up ladders a little bit. You can just, I mean, don't jump into enemies and things like that. But on a technical level, it's a mess. It is a real mess. So it just feels more like a game you'd find, a knockoff version you'd find in one of those plug-and-play devices, something like that, or a Korean arcade game that wants to be Burger Time, and just like that Donkey Kong one I played the other day. It was so close to being every level from Donkey Kong, but modernised. That's how this feels, but this is an official Data East game, and the official sequel, well, yeah, proper sequel to Burger Time. I mean, Peter Pepper's Ice Cream Factory is sort of the sequel, but that's spin-off more so. But, I mean, okay, why did I fire that one up? Well, the story of that one, I don't know what the story is, but there's a clone set. This clone set, the Second World set, and this has been dumped from several PCBs, and the behaviour is confirmed. But on this set, they've disabled the backgrounds. Backgrounds are still in ROM, all the graphics data's there, but they decided to disable them. Now, I'm guessing that they were disabled later, and this is a later revision. I don't think it's a hack, because every board we've seen that's had proper Data East labels. So, have they disabled them because they decided they were too ugly, or player feedback said that it was making it hard to see the enemies? It's not clear, but yeah, this set 2 has the backgrounds disabled. And that is entirely by design. Because I thought at first it was a bad dump. When I added this set, I was like, I'm questioning, are the backgrounds missing because it's a bad dump? Is part of the ROM missing? But no, it's been confirmed on multiple boards that this is just how this revision is. I mean, there are backgrounds for some of the stages, like the boss stage I think still has a background. So I'm going to play it till that point. but it's a very odd one. I mean, you'll probably never know the full story of why it was changed. So I'm going to guess it was something to do with clarity, or wanting to make it look a bit more like the original. But so you're getting slowed down already. It's no tumble pop, which is a shame because, you know, you think of Data East, you do think of the classic platformers that like tumble pop, like Geomac Returns, Diet Go-Go. This had the potential. It's just sort of ruined by some not so great programming as much as anything. It's still fun. I mean, I'm not just saying it's not fun. It's just, you see all the sprite flicker going on there, and that all happens on the real hardware. At least I'm told it does, and I've no reason to doubt that. And sometimes it has scrolling issues. In 2-player mode, it's even worse. But yeah. So yeah, for the boss fight, you still get the background. And the boss fights, you know, the original Burger Time didn't have boss fights, so this adds something new to the mix. Although, yeah, it's very easy to lose all your lives on this boss fight. You are meant to make an effort to avoid things. I didn't make an effort to avoid things, and so there you go. Shall I just do 1 extra credit? It's even got some ugly garbage around the 8 on the countdown there, you know. It's like the quality control just wasn't there with this. And yeah, you can die very easily here. You have to avoid the bees. If you don't avoid the bees, which you can't shoot immediately, as you can see, this is not a well-designed boss. At least I don't feel it is. You can't jump up that platform. You can only fire you can only shoot the bees once they start moving. Look how many credits I'm burning through here. There's no obvious health meter on the boss either, so you don't know how close you are to beating it. You just know that there's annoying bees. There we go. I'm sure with enough practice you could work out a pattern on that, but I don't know. And no, the backgrounds do not come back for stage 2. They are still gone. All the normal stages in this game lack backgrounds. Although the mini burgers are kind of cute, aren't they? But, yeah, it's one of those. It reminds me of Rodland in the sense that it could have been so much better, and maybe had this had some home ports, they would have been really good. But this arcade version is a bit rough around the edges, to say the least. But I just wanted to show off that other set without the backgrounds because I find that really curious. And so it's an intentional change they've made. So where am I going to go now? Oh, let me have a look. I'm going to have a look at a fix that I'd completely missed. Well, last year. This one slipped under the radar for me when it happened. This is Exerizer by Jaleco, also known as Skyfox. But this one has a really fancy Starfield. And also that's quite a fancy title logo for a game from, what, 80... Oh, it's 87. It's actually quite late, sorry. I thought this was earlier. Okay, maybe it's not such a fancy logo, but it's got this Starfield effect with all the different speed scrolling stars and all the different flicker. And you know, that's a lot of layers of stars. I mean, I'm not sure it's the best game in the world, but it's